Welcome to our CTE Credentials webinar. I'm Nancy Wagner, your presenter. Okay, our target outcomes for today. We're going to examine the qualifications needed for the preliminary CTE credential. You're going to discover how single subject credential teachers may also obtain a preliminary CTE credential. Their process is a little bit different than people who have never held any type of credential. We're going to review the requirements for the clear CTE credential. That'll come after the Q&A. That's in the second half of our presentation. You're going to become familiar with the CTE professional preparation coursework that is required for the clear CTE credential. And we're going to explore how to use the LACOE CTE Credential Services website. That will give you lots of information about frequently answered questions and where to get our application packets. So hopefully we're going to hit our targets today. All right. Well, why do you need to understand CTE credentials? Well, if you're an administrator of CTE programs, or if you're a CTE teacher, it's important that you understand how CTE credentials work. The reasons are threefold: recruitment and hiring of CTE teachers, program oversight of CTE, and fiscal responsibility. And if you are a CTE teacher holding one of these credentials, of course you need to understand how your credential works, right? For fiscal integrity, you need to make sure that the teacher holds the appropriate CTE credential in order to expend CTE incentive grant funds or Perkins funds or any other special CTE funds on that teacher's program. If the teacher doesn't have the right credential for that particular program, then you aren't allowed to spend those monies on that program. So the California Department of Ed takes a look at that for any of their grantees, and they do monitor it. So it's really important. Let's start with just a quick overview of our LACOE Designated Subjects Credentials program. We offer 3 types of designated subjects credentials: adult education, career technical education, supervision and coordination. We actually serve all of California. We offer our coursework through partnership with the University of San Diego. CTE credentials are based on experience in the industry. We do over, it says 1,200 credentials annually. It's probably closer to 1,500 now. And supervisors and mentors are required to provide support for teacher candidates in their districts. Okay, so we're going to start with what is a preliminary CTE credential. The CTE credential may be used for teaching in middle school, high school, charter schools, adult schools, ROCPs, or other training schools. So basically from, let's say, grades 7 and above, or 6th graders if they're in a middle school, you may use that credential if you are teaching a CTE subject that's listed on your credential. Now, an interesting thing is community colleges don't require credentials. However, for their CTE programs, when they're looking at the qualifications for hiring a teacher, they really like our credential because they know you're well-trained in CTE and they know you would have the industry background. So even though it's not required, if community college CTE teaching is something you desire to do, it's a good thing to have this credential. But primarily it's used in these schools that I have listed. Now you're probably wondering, what about elementary? CTE is not really offered in elementary schools. What you see in elementary schools is more like career awareness. You know, think about the kindergarten that has the little corner that has the things to play with. They can put on a firefighter's hat and see what it's like to be a firefighter. Maybe a guest speaker comes in. That's just career awareness. CTE doesn't start, as far as the state is concerned, to call them CTE classes. until at least middle school and above. And even at middle school, sometimes what you're offering is more of an exploratory program. Okay, you'll learn about that as part of taking the courses in our program. Okay, the CTE credential, the preliminary credential, is issued for 3 years. In that 3 years, you have to meet all of the qualifications in order to clear that CTE credential, and you must apply for that clear credential before the preliminary expires. On that preliminary credential are CTE subject authorizations, which are based on your industry work experience and background. Now, even though the Commission on Teacher Credentialing calls them subject authorizations, they are really what we know as the 15 industry sectors used in California for career tech ed. And these are the 15 industry sectors. Those of you who are already in career tech ed, those are going to be very familiar to you. You know that this is what the California CTE model curriculum standards are based upon. Well, these are the industry sectors that will show up on your preliminary CTE credential. You could have one or more. If you have multiple, you don't have multiple CTE credentials. You have one CTE credential with multiple industry sectors, okay? All right, so what kind of CTE subjects may be taught? Well, here's what's important to note. Even though you have a CTE industry sector listed on your credential, it covers a broad list of occupations and subjects, but you really can only teach those subjects for which you're qualified. Let me give you an example. There's an industry sector called fashion and interior design. Let's say you got that on your credential. Well, when you applied for the credential, you had to send us letters of verification of your employment in that particular industry that would qualify you for that sector. And those range in that particular industry sector anywhere from cosmetology all the way to upholstering, interior design, fashion merchandising. There's a whole slew of subjects that fall under that particular industry sector. Let's say that you receive this industry sector based on your work experience as a cosmetologist. Sure, you'll get your credential and it will say fashion and interior design. That doesn't mean you're qualified to teach upholstering, does it? You're qualified to teach cosmetology, right? So you can only teach in the particular subject in which you have the work experience and background. Well, who determines that? Well, when you're employed by a district, an ROCP, an adult school, whomever employs you to teach, it's their responsibility to determine what subjects may be taught based on your work experience and background. Sometimes people in human resources are not familiar with that. This is one of the roles of the CTE coordinator in the district or the ROCP or the adult school. They're the ones that are supposed to take a look at this and determine what you can teach and whether you're qualified for what they need. Now, it's important to also note that some CTE subjects fall into different industry sectors for the California Department of Ed versus the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. For instance, CTC has robotics in 3 sectors. Engineering and architecture is one, information and communication technology is a second, and manufacturing and product development is a third. Well, the determination of which industry sector we will list on your credential is made by LACOE based on what you've given us in the application packet. It also helps if you let us know what it is that your district wants you to teach and under which industry sector. One last warning on this, the CTE subjects are not fully aligned with the model curriculum standards, which are under the California Department of Ed. Let me give you an example on that one. Animation. On the CTC list of industry sectors and occupations, they put animator under manufacturing and product development. But the California Department of Ed has it under both arts, media, and entertainment and manufacturing and product development. It really depends on the type of animation that you've had your work experience in. Most school districts run their animation programs under arts, media, and entertainment. But the closest occupation that CTC recognizes under arts, media, and entertainment would be multimedia productions. So, you know, when you're validating that work experience and getting those letters to send from employers, it's important that those duties really spell out what kind of experience you had. And if your district was looking for arts, media, and entertainment, for instance, then we'd have to see something related to multimedia productions in order to give you arts, media, and entertainment. It's complicated, I know. Truly, the devil's in the details, right? All right. So how to qualify for a preliminary CTE credential? Well, there's various ways, but the most important qualification is industry experience. That's not teaching experience, that's industry experience. CTC wants to know that you came out of that industry and that you are somewhat up to date in that industry. That's what career tech ed is all about. Well, the preliminary credential requires a minimum of 3 years of work experience or a combination of work experience and college level coursework in the subject. Now here's 3 different ways to meet it. The first option is the easiest and the most common. 3 years of industry experience, period. Now, CTC defines a year as 1,000 hours of paid or unpaid experience. So that can be paid work experience, or that could be volunteer experience, or it could have been an internship, for instance, okay? Sometimes we get people with freelance experience. Yeah, they got paid, but they weren't considered an employer. So it's a little bit more difficult to document that. 1,000 hours is kind of akin to a part-time job, like 20 hours a week. If you added it up for a whole year, you'd get to 1,000 hours, all right? It's also possible to accumulate those hours over multiple years. So if you have, let's say, 500 hours for 6 years, that would be the equivalent of 3,000 hours of experience. Now, what happens sometimes is people only have 2 years of experience, but they have college level coursework that they took in the subject. Let me give you the example of having worked in the banking industry. Let's say you worked in a bank for 2,000 hours, 2 years, but you also took college courses in finance, even related courses, banking, business, those would qualify you. Now, general ed courses don't qualify you. Those don't count at all. So when we're looking for 24 semester units in the subject, we're looking strictly at that subject area, not English, math, art, PE, or whatever. So that would be, in this case, banking, business, finance. Another way is if you did an industry certification. If you got an industry certification, that can be used in lieu of 1 year of work experience. So you'd need the 2 years of work experience plus the industry certification, or 2 years of work experience plus the 24 semester units in the subject. That's the second way to do it. The third option is, let's say an individual only has 1 year of industry experience. They can only come up with 1,000 hours in that industry. Well, if they have 48 semester units in that subject, then that'll work. That'll take care of the other 2 years. Or if they have 24 semester units, that's 1 year, And then an industry certification, there's your 3rd year. So that's how you get your 3 years to qualify for the preliminary credential. Now, here's what's important. There's an additional requirement that we call the recency requirement. CTC says that 1 year of work experience has to be within the last 5 or 2 years within the last 10 years. So sometimes what happens is somebody had industry experience and then they got another type of credential and they started teaching. And then they come to us and say, oh no, I've been teaching or I've been doing something else for the last 10 years. My work experience is more than 10 years old in the industry. Well, that's when we can look at a couple of things. If they have been teaching, let's say they've been teaching elementary school or something, then that will meet the recency. And we could still go back 10 years or more and accept that work experience. Another way is if they've been taking any kind of college level courses or post-secondary vocational training in that subject, or if they had an occupational internship. Sometimes teachers go for a summer to bring themselves up to date. And so if they've done a few summers and they can come up with those 1,000 hours of work experience, then that might work in lieu of recent work experience. So once we meet this recency, then if the rest of the work experience is older, we can still count it. So that seems to be one of the stumbling blocks that we always have to take a look at the individual situation. All right, now this work experience must be documented. And the way it's normally done is you must go to your employer, former employer, and we have a sample letter that we give you in our application packet. The employer must put it on letterhead. They must follow our sample where they put the dates from what year to what year, how many hours per year, and then a list of your job title, and then a list of the duties that you did. And then they must sign it with an original signature. That's the work experience letter. Now, yeah, I said that. Now, if an individual can't get that employer letter, there are a few options. Individuals who are self-employed or working freelance, they have a different letter that we have in the packet called the self-verified letter. But basically the information is the same. From what year to what year, how many hours per year, what was your job title, what was your duties. The difference is then you have to get that letter notarized. And there's a statement about under, penalty of perjury, I attest that all of this information is true, so on and so forth. Then you go to a notary. Now, you also must provide 5 backup pieces of documentation to go with it to prove what you said in the letter. That can be pay stubs, tax records, a business card, a business license, purchase orders, customer letters. We need something to prove that you did that work. And for instance, if you own the business, you would help prove to us that what you put in that letter was true. Now, this letter also works for people who worked for an employer who either no longer exists or is unwilling or unable to write that employer letter. So you can still do that self-verified letter and get it notarized, but you still have to come up with those 5 pieces of backup documentation in order to prove that that is true. Okay, well, what other requirements are there? The preliminary CTE credential requires, there we go, high school graduation or a GED, or if you did get a college degree, any of those you must document with a transcript and provide to us. Now, for some occupations, you must have a license. And so if you're going to teach nursing, you would have a nursing license to provide to us. If you're going to teach cosmetology, you would have that license. EMT teachers, paramedics, that would be another area where we would expect to see a license. Otherwise, for most of the occupations, this would not apply. If you've never held a credential in California before, you're going to go through the live scan fingerprinting process. And also, you will first apply for what's called a certificate of clearance through the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. You're going to pay them $52.50 online with a credit card. Now, they were waiving that. They said they were going to waive it until the end of June. But normally you would need to pay the $52.50. You apply for the certificate of clearance, which means that your fingerprints have cleared the Department of Justice, the FBI, and so forth. You have professional fitness questions you have to answer about your background. All of that goes through CTC normally very quickly, even same day sometimes, or 24 hours. If it takes more than a couple of days, you might get a notification from them. For instance, if you have to answer yes to one of the professional fitness questions, for instance, if you ever had a misdemeanor or a felony, if you have a police record, there's a whole laundry list of things. And if you had to say yes and provide documentation to them, they may have to then send it to their division called professional practices and do their investigation and so forth. So anytime somebody has to say yes to any of those fitness questions, it's going to take longer to get that certificate of clearance. Otherwise, it's usually very quick. Okay, once that certificate of clearance has been received, then you're going to include that as part of your application to us. There's also what's called the CTC Form 41-4 that you have to do with us. There's a LACOE information form and a little survey. There's what we call the intent to complete the clear credential requirements form. That's just you saying, once I get this preliminary credential, I agree to do the following courses and meet the other requirements in order to clear my credential within the 3 years. There's also a LACOE processing fee. Our fee is $100, and that must be included as a money order or a cashier's check. Later on then, once we process your application and once we recommend you to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing for a credential, then CTC will notify you when they've received that. That takes a couple of weeks. They're going to then ask you to pay them an additional $52.50 if you had already paid them $52.50 for the certificate of clearance. Or if you didn't do the certificate of clearance, but you had prior credentials, they may charge you $102.50. Now, again, first time for these types of applications, CTC says they're waiving due to COVID up until the end of June. But it kind of depends on your particular situation and what you've done before with CTC. If you've done anything with them, then they may not see you as a first-time applicant and they may charge you. Just depends. On our website is where you find our preliminary CTE credential packet. It's packet number 1. I'm going to show you later when we go to our website how you find that, along with some other really good information on our website. A few more slides, and then we'll be opening it for questions. Now, sometimes we are approached by school districts or CTE administrators who have current teachers who hold a single subject credential. There are single subject credentials in academic subjects, and there are single subject credentials in career tech ed subjects. If they hold a single subject credential in one of these 5 CTE subjects, agriculture, business ed, home economics, industrial arts, or industrial technology education, they're qualified to teach the CTE subjects that are listed the sectors, I should say, that are listed on the right side. So if you have a single subject credential in business ed and you want them to teach a business and finance class, then that's acceptable. They may not have to apply for a designated subject CTE credential. However, there is a disclaimer to that. In the California state plan, in order to spend Perkins funds, which come from the federal government, the plan says that the teacher must have industry experience. It doesn't say how much, it just says that they must have documented employment experience in the sector. So this is kind of under review by CTE and by the Perkins people who do monitoring in school districts. And what we've advised districts is this: if that teacher has work experience and you can document it and keep it on file, then when someone comes through every, say, 3 years to do a Perkins review in your district, you could show them this teacher has a single subject business ed credential, and here's their work experience in business and finance. Therefore, we did not have them apply for a designated subject CTE credential. You can go that way. Some school districts, though, don't want to do that. And so they go ahead and send their single subject teachers to us, and they say, we want you to get the additional credential. Here's how you do that. Either if you have career tech subjects and your district wants you to do this anyway, or if you have other subjects, art, math, English, whatever the subject is, you could qualify for a CTE credential in a couple of different ways. You still need a minimum of 1 year of industry experience, 1,000 hours of paid or unpaid experience. Plus, if you have 24 semester units in the subject of college level courses, or if you have an industry certification. Your full-time teaching, if you've been teaching on your single subject credential for at least 1 year, that takes care of the recency issue. And so really, when it goes to taking single subject teachers and qualifying them for a preliminary CTE credential, it's pretty easy unless they absolutely have no industry experience ever. And you know, that kind of begs the question, should they be teaching robotics or engineering or health occupations if they never set foot in the industry, paid or unpaid? Yeah. So there's a reason that those requirements are in place. But we work with single subject teachers all the time, and we get a lot of them credentialed in CTE. So most of the time we can make it happen. All right, well then what happens next? You got everything together for your packet. You mailed it into Linda Matzik at LACOE. Now what happens? Okay, as I said before, if you had never been credentialed in California, you must apply for that certificate of clearance before you even apply to us, okay? But let's say you did that and you included a copy of your certificate of clearance and you mailed everything to LACOE. So LACOE then reviews your packet. And if you're missing anything, Linda Matzik will email you and she'll say, I need this from you, or you don't qualify for this sector, but you do qualify for this other sector. And so she'll start an email with you about anything that needs to be added. But usually our processing time, if everything is together, is around 2 weeks. Linda really processes credentials pretty quickly, surprisingly, for the amount of volume that we get. If you're in a hurry, you can pay an expedite fee. It's an extra $60 on top of our $100 processing fee. The ones that are sent with the extra 60 go to the top of the pile and they get processed first. So if you're in a hurry, if a district wants you on board very quickly, I suggest adding the $60. Well, once Linda determines that the individual has qualified for the credential, she writes the LACOE recommendation letter and she sends it by email to the individual. At that time, we also send it to CTC. And luckily, we're able to now send those online to CTC. We plug in our recommendation, and that makes it all go very fast. We don't have to mail the packets to CTC like we used to. It used to take 3 months. But now that we're able to take your recommendation and submit it directly to CTC, you should then hear from them in a couple of weeks. So then CTC will send you an email from do-not-reply@ctc.gov. And basically what that says is, we need you to finish processing this credential online. They will send you directions about what you need to do. You've got to log in, you have to answer their questions, complete their form. Again, they've been waiving their fee for first-time applicants, but if they're not waiving their fee, then you're going to be paying them either the $52 or the $102. And then they'll say, thank you very much. And then it might be, another week or so. Then you're going to get another email from them saying, congratulations, your credential has been approved, and with the link to log in, and you'll see that your credential has been posted on that CTC website. Now, the downside of us doing online recommendations is we have been finding that people ignore that email that they get from CTC. They don't finish the processing. They figure once they got the certificate of clearance, they're done. And once they got their recommendation from Linda, they're done. Afraid not. And unfortunately, it expires after 90 days. I just had one this morning, somebody back in October, never finished the processing for CTC, ignored that email, or it went in their spam, who knows what, but they didn't do it. And so it's like, oh, okay, we have to go in and re-enter that recommendation all over again. And then they're going to have to wait a couple of weeks. And then they get the notice again from CTC, follow those directions, and then they know that they did it correctly, because a week or so later, they'll get that final email from CTC saying, congratulations, your credential is approved. If you never get that email saying your credential's been approved and you go on their website and it's not posted, you're not done, or something went wrong. Sometimes they're holding it up. And again, if they're holding it up and they need something from you, they'll send you a letter in the mail, snail mail. So you really got to keep your eyes and ears open to make sure that your credential makes it all the way through the process. Now, one other thing, if somebody's in a hurry to hire you, I mentioned you ought to pay that extra $60 to us to expedite your processing. But the other thing I'll say is this: once Linda sends you that recommendation, you need to give it to the employer, because they can then request a temporary county certificate, what's called a TCC, from whatever county that employer is in, okay? There's a county office for every county in the state, and they would go through that county office, they submit a TCC application, get it approved based on Linda's recommendation, and that'll cover you for a few months while you're waiting for CTC to finish processing your credential. So there is a way for you to begin teaching right away, but you kind of have to know what you're doing to make sure that happens. And of course, we'll help you with that. Okay, just I think I've got one more slide and then we'll get to the questions. Okay, so one of the questions that often comes up is, when does the preliminary CTE credential allow the teacher to teach English learners? Because in California, there is a requirement that you have to go through a teaching English learners training before you're allowed to have English learners in your classroom. And pretty much in California and everywhere in the state, no matter where you're teaching, you're going to have English learners in your classroom. So your preliminary CTE credential does not include an authorization to teach English learners. But one of the required classes that you have to take with us in order to clear your credential is a teaching English learners class. It's actually the third class in our sequence that you have to take. So in the meantime, what the district must do is they must file a waiver each year with CTC. Some districts will charge you money for that. LA Unified, for instance, I know they charge a fee. And so every year they're going to ask you, what's the progress on meeting your clear credential requirements? When are you going to take those courses? Because you're not going to get the English learner authorization until you clear your preliminary credential. That's why it behooves you to clear it as soon as possible. You're going to be qualified once you finish all your requirements, and then you have to apply to LACOE to clear, and you have to pay fees again, I'm afraid, and you have to provide some documentation and a transcript of the courses you took through us and some other good things. I'm going to show you all of that later on. There is an exception though. If you have taken what's called SEDI training, that stands for Specially Designed Academic Instruction in English, and that course was then submitted to CTC so that you received a certificate of completion of staff development from them. It's a specific thing called a CCSD. I know lots of acronyms. Well, if you get that, that's posted on their website. And in that case, you can teach English learners, and we will waive our Teaching English Learners course for you. That doesn't happen often that people do that, but it does happen now and then. So that would be the other exception. Otherwise, again, the best thing you can do is just get through all of your clear credential requirements as soon as possible so that your district doesn't have to keep filing a waiver each year for you, okay? All right. Finally, we're going to go to next steps. So we're going to stop for a minute here. Let me see how many people we have, and let me take a look at the chat too. And I know we've got a bunch of questions up there. Let me open up my gallery a little bit so I can see a little better. Sheila, how many people do we have here? Do you know?
Excluding us,
Yeah.
38.
Okay, yeah, that's too many to unmute, I think. All right, give me a second. I wanna stop sharing for a sec. Actually, I don't have to. I can just go to full screen.
I noticed a gentleman had a question earlier. Mr. Don Biscio, he said, I hadn't heard of the business education credential.
Yeah.
He assumes that's different than the regular business single subject credential?
No, there is a single subject business education credential. That's what I was talking about. Yeah. There's also a designated subjects CTE credential in business and finance. So those are two different things. If you need some more clarification, let me know. Let me open up the chat here so I can see. Let's see, what else have we got here? Oh, you guys are from all over. Okay, if you hold a single subject and already have the teaching EL certification, how does that fit with the course you described? Well, good question. It depends on what it is exactly. If it's a CLAD certification, yeah, that will let you waive our Teaching English Learners course. And that also will allow you to go ahead and teach English learners before you've even cleared your CTE credential. So yeah, CLAD certification does it. Okay, what if I had a preliminary voc ed credential, but I let it expire? Ah, an old voc ed credential. I'm out of voc ed, I'm an old vocie. Yeah, unfortunately, The time to renew that credential or clear that credential was way back before 2010. So after 2010, they changed the standards and they went into a new credential. So basically, you start over again. You apply for a new preliminary CTE credential. Now, if there was anything that you met in terms of the qualifications to clear your old credential, like let's say you did the US Constitution already, we can still count that. If you did the Health Ed for Teachers course, you know, we could count that. If you took level 1 or level 2, we can still count that. But the new, as you'll see when I share the coursework, the new standards required us to really expand our coursework. So there's, you know, quite a few more courses. There's 4 courses minimum that you have to take. But let's say you took level 1 way back when and passed it, we could waive our first course, Foundations of Classroom Management, if you had already passed level 1. So we take a look at that old credential of yours, what you did at that time, what we could count already and so forth. You're probably wondering about documenting the work experience though, right? Our archives don't go that far back. We've got no way to access your old work experience documentation if it was before 2010. So if you didn't keep a copy of those letters, you know, you're going to have to generate those again, either go back to that employer or you're going to have to, you know, do the self-verified thing. But yeah, we'll work with you on that. And if you're going to do that, you would use packet number 2 because you had already held a credential in California. And I'm going to show my email at the end. You're welcome to email me. I'll send you the packet. We'll kind of go back and forth. I'll go onto the CTC website and take a look at your credential, and we can email back and forth and make sure that you've got what you need in order to apply. Okay, let's see, what else have we got here? Samples of industry certifications that may be used. Oh yeah, well, you know, it depends on the subject. For instance, EMT has its own certification. Certified nursing assistant has a certification, licensed vocational nurse. Under arts, media, and entertainment, there's a bunch of stuff for graphic designers. There's like Adobe and Microsoft certifications. In the automotive industry, there's what they call NATAF. In the CAD area, AutoClad is a certification. Under marketing, there's a National Retail Foundation certification. Industry certifications are a program or a test that you go through. Cisco's another one you might have heard of, A+ certification. There's a bunch of them. Those industry certifications are approved to use across the United States for that particular occupation. Sometimes it's for a particular software program. Project Lead the Way is one. So there's different types depending on your subject. And we also have a lot of those posted on our CTE website. If you go into laco.edu/CTE, then you go under, I think it's under curriculum. There's a list of the industry certifications that are currently approved by the state, but there's probably other certifications that aren't even listed there. So what you could do is email us whatever you already have and say, will this qualify? Will this count as 1 year? And we can tell you if it will or not. Yeah, Project Lead the Way. The thing about Project Lead the Way is, so there's individual certifications where you go through their program or you take a test and pass it. Now, Project Lead the Way is a little different because it's an actual program certification. Your district has to have agreed with Project Lead the Way to have a certain program. Biotech is an example, engineering is an example. And then the district has to pay so much money actually to Project Lead the Way, and then their teachers are sent through that training. So sometimes I get people who, like a math teacher, and they've been teaching Project Lead the Way engineering for their district, and they did get that Project Lead the Way certification as part of that. but their district wants them to get a designated subject CTE credential because they want to be able to spend that Perkins money on those classes usually. So yeah, and so what they'll do is that project lead the way certification will count as 1 year, definitely. Yep, absolutely. Yep, we do it all the time. The hard part usually with people who have a math credential and they've been teaching project lead the way, or maybe biology and they've been doing the biotech, biosciences. The hard part usually, and they usually took college courses, but the hard part is the 1 year, the 1,000 hours of the work experience. That's the tough part. Okay, I have some unpaid. Let me go up a little bit. I missed a few questions. Okay, ROTC, okay, ROTC teachers, 21 years of teaching, eligible for the government and public service CTE credential. Yeah, so you may already have a preliminary designated subjects or clear designated subjects, special subjects credential. That's something that exists. We don't do it at LACOE, but there are some other program sponsors in California who do. And that's usually where ROTC teachers fall. And then again, maybe you don't. Maybe they've been having you teach with some other type of credential. But you're indicating, would you be eligible for the public services CTE credential? Maybe, you know, your teaching experience would count as 1 year. So again, what was your industry experience that led you to teach ROTC? If you had you been in the military, or, you know, what did you do? So we have to take a look at that. And or, well, you still need 1,000 hours or 2,000 hours work experience in public service or government, military, law enforcement, whatever it is. And did you take any college level courses to qualify too? So Romeo, I'd say what you do for that is you're going to email me and you're going to provide me some information. Maybe just give me your resume for starters and I can look at your, you know, your background and then we'll figure it out. Okay. Let's see. So I think we covered your question, Suzanne, and Rosalind. I have a current VOCAD credential too. It is current and valid. Yeah. So here's the deal on that. You might have noticed the VOCAD credentials did not have industry sectors. They had real specific subjects. So used to be 138, I think, occupations or subjects. Like I had an old one that was specific to like office occupations and typing, you know. So what becomes sometimes an issue for a school district is if they're offering a career pathway that's broader than that. Maybe they have a business and finance career pathway and they want you to teach, maybe a couple of periods of keyboarding and then a period of marketing and then a period of business management or something like that. Your credential is probably too narrow for that. But if what they want you to teach is narrow enough that it's covered by the subject on your VOCAD credential, you can still use it. It's just real limited. So and when you apply for positions, you probably realize that it's very limited. So in your case, same thing, you could apply for the new credential, another preliminary CTE credential that will give you one or more industry sectors, which will make you a little bit more current. And so again, you can email me, I'll look up your old credential. You can tell me what you want to teach. We'll have to figure out how you can get your work experience together so that you can apply for that credential. Unpaid voluntary recent work experience. Yeah, that probably works. It just depends on the, you know, what the subject is. But again, it doesn't have to be paid. It could be unpaid. You just have to be able to get that documented or document it yourself. Okay, I completed a class to clear my preliminary last year, but I didn't do the paperwork to clear. Can I still have it processed? Okay, so the only time people only have one class that they have to take usually with us is if they held a single subject credential already. the people who hold single subject credentials only have to take one class. It's called Foundations of Curriculum, and that's so they learn the CTE standards. Otherwise, if you didn't have some other credential, you probably had maybe 4 or 5 classes you had to take for us. So it gives me pause that you're saying you took a class. Anyway, I could look up your credential. I can look for you in our database, and I can tell you whether you're ready to apply for a clear. But the answer is yeah, if you've met all the requirements, you may still apply for your clear credential. So, if you want to hang on at the very end, I can open up another screen and I can check out your credential and I can go into our database. Or if you don't want to hang in here, just shoot me an email and then we'll do it through email. Okay, can you help us explore how certain LACOE positions would make us eligible for certain industry certification? Not sure I understand what you mean by LACOE positions. You mean someone who has worked for LACOE?
So for example, I currently work in foster youth services. So then I'm thinking perhaps that would be in, the education pathway, but I'd like to be able to explore what is relatable.
What division are you in?
Foster youth services.
And what is your job title?
Senior program specialist, certificated management.
Okay. We'd have to look at your duties.
Okay.
We would have to look at your duties, but right off the top of my head, I'm thinking you're going to qualify for something under education, child development, and family services. That's my first thought. Because foster youth, I'm thinking of family services, right?
Okay.
But yeah, we have to take a look at. The best thing is, you know how to pull up your LACOE job description, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and if you think it's too broad, then give me more indicators of your actual duties. Sometimes the LACOE job descriptions are just like huge, and it's like, well, what I really do is this, this, and this, and then we can figure that out. Okay,
I'll email you. Thank you so.
You're so welcome. Okay, we already talked about Project Lead the Way, and Sheila posted our website. And also reminded you before you leave today that you're going to do a little survey if you would. Okay. CTE Pathway Advisor, still interested in upgrading. Yeah. Email me, Rosalind, or if you want to talk at the end. Hey, Carl, how you doing? Haven't seen you for a while. Multiple subjects credential, only need one class. Yeah. In addition to the single subject credential, the other thing is we often get people who have a multiple subjects credential. And if so, then in order to clear, once they qualify for the preliminary CTE credential, then in order to clear it, they only have to take one class, the Foundations of Curriculum class. And it's because they have to learn the CTE standards. Yeah, they're used to the multiple subject standards. They're not used to our CTE. Okay, and Sheila posted my email, which is great. Okay, I'll take one more and then we'll move on, I think. Is dance continuing as a CTE certificate? Yeah, so interesting question because, yeah, you're probably aware they have recently started a single subject program in dance. They've also done one for theater, but you may still, if you qualify, you may still apply for a preliminary CTE credential in dance would fall under arts, media, and entertainment, specifically under the performing arts pathway. And same thing with theater, actually. So it really just depends on which way you want to go, which way your district wants you to go to. Now, the thing is, if you get a single subject dance or a single subject theater, that's great, but that's considered an academic credential and it won't qualify your district to spend Perkins or CTE incentive grant on your program. So they may say, oh yeah, I love it. Get that single subject dance, but oh, by the way, also get the CTE credential in arts, media, and entertainment so we can spend this money on you and count it as a true CTE class. We're going to talk now about the requirements to clear a preliminary CTE credential. So you've got your CTE credential and you got 3 years, the clock is ticking, right? So the first thing you need to do is start looking at completing what we call early orientation. We really like you to do that within the first month after you get your credential. Don't panic. If you don't get it done within the first month, it's not going to hurt anything. But you got to do that early orientation for us before you start your professional preparation coursework. That early orientation is free. It takes about 20 hours to do. You can do it at your leisure, 3 o'clock in the morning in your pajamas if you feel like, knocking it out, or you can go in and out, do a little, and then go back to it. But you'll see when you're sent the recommendation, that's the first thing that Linda tells you to do. Do that early orientation. And once you've finished it, you get a certificate or what they call a badge at the end, and you're going to send that to Linda. Look, I'm done, congratulations. Now I want to start all of my coursework. So once we get that certificate, then you may start enrolling in your courses. And we're going to go through the courses in a minute here. All right, the other thing you're going to be needing to do is get a teaching job if you can, if you don't have one already. And before you can clear your credential, you're going to need 2 years of teaching experience, and it can only start after your preliminary CTE credential issuance date. Many times we get people say, I've been teaching for 5 years. Not on the CTE credential, you weren't teaching for 5 years. CTC says, once you get that credential, that's when the clock starts. So you're going to need, we usually say 4 semesters, but it's really 4 terms. And I'll give you an instance. Some schools are on a trimester system. So you might teach for them what they call fall, winter, spring. There's 3 terms right there. And then if you taught summer, there's 4. Some of the private post-secondary schools offer courses to adults that run, anywhere from 4 to 10 or whatever weeks. Each one of those is a separate course. And so even though we say 4 semesters, it's really 4 terms. So it depends on how that employer defines a term, 1 whole course. Complete that course, then you get a whole nother group of students, then that's another term. The other thing that's important to know is even if you have multiple industry sectors listed on your credential, you only have to teach in one of those industry sectors, and you only need to teach 1 CTE course for 4 terms, okay? You're also going to need 2 semesters of what we call supervision and mentoring. Well, first, the supervision. Everybody has a supervisor, right? You have a supervisor that's probably going to come in and observe you. They're going to do personnel evaluations. Well, this is not a personnel evaluation. This is a once a semester observation, watching you teach, and then sitting down with you and giving you feedback. And we have a specific supervisor program evaluation form that's based on the California standards for the teaching profession. It's a checklist, so they have to go in through that checklist when they observe you and then sit down and give you feedback. And then you write your comments on there and you sign. So we need 2 semesters of those observations documented by your supervisor. And then they also have to send us a contact log for both semesters that says, in addition to observing this individual, I had the following pop-in meetings, I had emails, I had phone calls, whatever their contact was with you, because they should be supporting you throughout that first year of your teaching. Now, the other thing they have to do is they have to assign a mentor teacher to you. The supervisor may not also be the mentor. No. 2 different people. And that mentor teacher needs to be somebody with a clear teaching credential. We would love it if there are always somebody in your particular CTE subject area. That can be very difficult to find. As long as they have a clear credential, it doesn't have to be in the same subject area. We have different documentation that they do, but it's also 2 semesters. They have to come in, observe you at least once a semester, and then sit down with you and give you that feedback, fill out our observation form. And then there's also what we call the feedback log, which is basically the same thing. What other kinds of contacts and support did they give you throughout the year? Another requirement to clear your credential is you must meet the US Constitution requirement. Every single type of credential in California requires this. And there's a couple of different ways to meet it. If you took a college level course that covered the US Constitution, it might have been a political science course, it might have been a history course. Sometimes you can look at the course title and it will say US Constitution, but lots of times it's hard to tell. And so what we will have you do is send us your transcript. And if you can find it, we want a course description. If you can't find it, we'll dig and try to find it for you. But that's how we know whether you already had a US Constitution course. If you did not, there is an online exam that you can take. There's also an online course that you can take to meet that. So there's a couple of different ways to go about doing that. The other thing that you're going to need in order to clear your credential is CPR certification, and that's for adults, infants, and children, or adults and pediatric. I think the American Heart Association calls it adult and pediatric. American Red Cross says adults, infants, and children. Now, here's the interesting thing. It really doesn't have to be valid when you apply for your clear credential. It has to have been valid sometime after your preliminary issuance date. So let's say you applied for your preliminary issuance, your preliminary credential, I don't know, 2 years ago, let's say March of 2020. And at that time, you had a valid CPR certificate. Well, if you held on to it, then that's all you have to do is provide that to us. You don't have to run out and take another class so that it's current, okay? But lots of times what happens is people get certification and they let it lapse. It's not unusual. So we'll accept online CPR courses. That's helped a lot. So it's pretty easy. There's a lot of courses out there. They're usually less than $100 online. Plenty that you can find, no problem. The 2 semesters of teaching and the 2 semesters of supervision and mentoring, if you're not able to do that, you're going to have another option coming up, okay? Before someone puts it in the chat, I'm going to get to that. All right, so our coursework that's required for the clear credential. We run all of our courses in partnership with University of San Diego. That is not UC San Diego. This is USD, which is a private university. We have a nice partnership with them dating back to 1991. So we offer all of our courses online. And for that, you will pay them the fees, and I'll show you the fees in a second. But you, when you complete the course, will get a transcript from them automatically. And you'll get, for most of our courses, 3 semester units. And that's considered graduate extension credit from them. So if you happen to be one of those teachers who's on a salary schedule where having units, you can move across columns and bump your pay a little, those classes will count for that. So that's when you appreciate, oh, good, I'm glad these courses are offered through a college because I'm going to get those nice credits. Okay, our first course that we require is called Foundations of Classroom Management. And then we take Foundations of Curriculum. Then we take Teaching English Learners. Each of those courses is 7 weeks long, and each will earn you 3 semester credits. Once you finish those 3 courses, then you take a course called Teaching Portfolio. It's 5 weeks long, 2 semester credits. And as you can imagine, what you're doing mainly in that course is you're developing a teaching portfolio, which is a requirement for from CTC. And in fact, at the end of the course, you're actually going to turn that teaching portfolio into us on a flash drive or a CD, because we have to keep it on file. CTC comes and visits us once every 7 years. They do an audit and they literally pull files and they look for certain things. And that's one of the things they'll do is they'll pull out an individual's teaching portfolio and they'll go in and they'll take a look at it. So that's one of our major requirements. There's also a health education for teachers course. And this is kind of similar to the US Constitution. If you took college courses, you might have had a health course. If it was a real general health course, it might meet this requirement. Same thing as the US Constitution. We need to see the transcript. If it's not obvious from the name of the course, we need a course description to go with it. And then we can tell you, we might be able to waive this requirement and count the course you already had. But if you have to take our course, it's only a 1-week course. You get 1 semester unit. It's also through USD. And that course you can take anytime you want. Now, the other courses must be taken one at a time, and they have to be taken in the order shown. So classroom management, then when you're done with that, enroll in curriculum. When you're done with that, enroll in teaching English learners. When you're done with that, enroll in teaching portfolio. Health ed, anytime you want, concurrent with anything before, after, whenever you want. The classroom management curriculum and teaching English learners classes are $600 a piece. And no, we don't have financial aid, nor does USD. However, if you're a member of California Credit Union or Schools First Credit Union, they offer teacher loans for professional development. So something to consider. So 600, 600, 600, then you get to the teaching portfolio. And that one is that 375 or 400? Sorry, having a little brain fade. It's 375 or 400. Then the health education for teachers course, I believe, is 350. So yeah, that's, you're talking about a couple $1,000, but you don't have to pay it all at once. You're going to pay it as you take a course. So these courses are offered 4 times a year: winter, spring, summer, and fall. And every course is offered at least twice per term. We started offering the curriculum courses 3 times per term and the teaching portfolio 3 times. So for those, you've got 12 different times when those are offered that you can take them. The others, 8 different times. So we get kind of annoyed when somebody says, oh, well, I couldn't get the coursework done in 3 years because it wasn't offered often enough, or, you know, you missed the enrollment, or one class is filled. Unless you wait until the last minute, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to take these courses. Okay, so I told you the sequence already. Now, let's say you don't get a teaching job, or let's say you do get a teaching job, but you don't teach for 4 semesters. And or maybe they won't provide the supervision and mentoring. There are some schools that say, we're so small, we can't have mentors, okay? So if that's your problem, then we do have an option, and that is that you can take what we call the Advanced Professional Training for CTE Credentials. It's another course that you can take. It's 7 weeks long. It's a combination of online and Zoom sessions, 3 Saturdays that we do. I actually teach that course. And it's really kind of cool because you will do a mock job interview for a teaching job. And you also are going to create a PowerPoint and then present a lesson plan for 15 minutes to the class. So it's a great class. And I get a lot of people who take it and say, I think everybody should have to take this class. Well, no, we don't do that. But at least that gives you an option. You're still going to be able to clear your credential if you weren't able to get the teaching experience and the supervision and mentoring in. So that's a very good option to have. Here's our flow chart, and it pretty much covers everything I've been talking about. Once Linda recommends you for the preliminary CTE credential, you get an email from her, and you go to the right, you do your early orientation modules, and you send the certificate to Linda, and then you start your coursework, all of those blue boxes, boom, boom, boom. You look at how you're going to meet your US Constitution requirement, your CPR, and then your last step before your credential expires is to apply for your clear credential. On the left side, for those who have other credentials, prior credentials, we take a look at what you've taken already or coursework equivalencies. As I said, if you had a multiple subject or single subject credential, automatically we know that there's only one course you have to take with that. And supervision and mentoring is waived for those who have single subject and multiple subject credentials. They've already gone through student teaching, so they've already been supervised and mentored. Now, everybody else then, your other job to do while you're doing your early orientation and you're starting your coursework, once you get a job, you need to notify us. You need to send Linda an email. Hey, guess what? I'm working for such and such school district now, such and such high school or middle school, whatever it is. Here's my supervisor's name and email address. And then Linda or I will email that supervisor and we'll say, okay, this person got their credential through us. They're in our program. We need you to supervise them and we need you to assign a mentor teacher to them. And you have to do these observations and you have to fill out this documentation for us so that they can clear their credential. And then the next box, as I already said, you have to teach at least one CTE course for 2 years or 4 terms, whatever it is. Substitute teaching does not count toward clearing your credential. It's really unfortunate. Sometimes we get people who are actually long-term subs and we can't count any of it. Sorry, that's a CTC decision, but we're not allowed to. So, and then if you haven't met the experience or the supervision mentoring, you can take that advanced professional training course with me. You'll see me on a couple of Saturdays when we Zoom, and the rest of it's done online. Then you would be ready to submit your application to us for your clear credential. So you're wondering, you know, what happens and if for whatever reason you don't get everything done? Well, you can apply through us for a 1-year extension if you need to, but I don't recommend it if you don't have to, because 2 downsides to that. You're going to pay $200 just to apply for a 1-year extension. And 1 year is not going to buy you that much more time. You know, if you had 3 years in which to take all these courses and meet these requirements, I mean, unless you had a major medical emergency, family emergency, or something like that, it's going to be hard for you to try to get everything done in just 1 year and apply for your clear. So plus it's such a waste of money, $200 for nothing. But yeah, that is an option. If you have to apply for a 1-year extension, you can, and you would want to reach out to us before your credential expired, like 3-4 months before, and say, I'm not going to be done. I want to apply for this, this extension, and then we'll send you the application. CTC will ask you to write a letter, and depending on what the reason is, you know, if it's a medical, they want backup documentation. They're getting kind of tough on extensions. They will not accept finances as a reason for not getting your coursework done. So one of the things too you need to do in the letter is indicate what you've already got done. What have you done? Because if you haven't taken any coursework and you haven't gotten any teaching in at all, then they're not going to be real friendly about giving you an extension. So, and yet without an extension, you can't really apply for teaching jobs, right? So it's a little bit of a catch-22, but we'll help you with that if you need it. All right, the Clear CTE application. This is what it takes when you do finally apply for your Clear CTE. You're going to be submitting transcripts to us. I know we offer the courses through USD. Why don't we have that? Well, we don't. You know, USD sees you as their student. They will mail you a transcript for free at the end of each course. And then the last course you take will have every course you took on it. The transcripts are cumulative. So every time you get one, it'll show everything you've taken. So it's that very last transcript once you're done with your coursework, and we just need a copy of it. You can keep that original. We don't have access to it, so we need that. You're going to need a letter from your employer, your district, or wherever you taught, and we have a sample for that, and they need to verify that you got those 4 terms of teaching experience in at least one CTE subject. We're going to need all that documentation that I told you about earlier from your supervisor and your mentor. You're going to need to give us a transcript for the U.S. Constitution course that you took that we approved, or proof that you passed the exam or took that UCSD course. We're going to need that CPR certification. And unfortunately, it's going to cost you another $100. That's our processing fee when you apply for your clear credential. And then you got more paperwork you got to fill out for us, and you're going to mail all that in to us. We then make the recommendation to CTC. Same process. They're going to send you an email. You got to do what they tell you to do to finish processing your clear credential through them. Follow their directions. They're going to have to pay them again. And then you're going to get an email from them saying, congratulations, your clear credentials approved. And you'll see in the website that it's all posted. Okay, I just want to show you real quick. You know, we talked earlier about the English learner authorization. And I just want to show you that once you get your clear CTE credential from CTC, it's going to have this authorization called the S17C, and I've got a little arrow pointing to that. This document authorizes the holder to provide services to English learners. That's when you finally get that English learner authorization, and your district can stop filing waivers every year, and they will be very happy when you do that. So that's why some people don't wait 3 years to clear their credential. You know, as soon as you've met all the requirements, you can apply for your clear credential. The sooner the better. Now, your clear CTE credential will be issued for 5 years, and you will never come to us again, because every 5 years, you're going to go in and renew it online with CTC. Right now, they charge $100. It's been $100 for many, many, many years. You just go online, fill out their paperwork to renew, and give them their money. And then, you know, you just got to remember, put in your calendar 5 years later or something. You got to keep renewing that every 5 years. And some districts will remind you, but not all districts track it for you. So you certainly don't want to let it expire, because, you know, you might not get paid. So make sure that you keep renewing it every 5 years. I'm so old, I have lifetime credentials. I'm not bragging, but I do. I don't have to pay every 5 years, which is really nice. They quit giving those out a long time ago. So sorry about that. All right. Here's our website for credentials. Well, actually, this is our CTE website that, that Sheila sent to you. And you can see you've got all of these buttons here. You click on credentials to get to the credentials part of the CTE website. And here's all these others. I think I mentioned, you know, like curriculum earlier. If you went into that button, one of the things you'll see in there are those industry certifications I mentioned. Okay, so once you click on credentials, this is how it looks. Credential services, our credential coursework. My red box is in the wrong place, I see. We post our flyers for our coursework 4 times a year on our website. Lucy Domingo also emails those out 4 times a year. So we really hit you with reminders about taking your coursework, believe me. Then the next part is how to apply for a designated subjects credential. I need to make a little note in here because I think I'm doing it from Google Slides. My animation went goofy. My red boxes are out of place. I have to fix that. So these are our packets. Packet number 1 is the one I described earlier for people who have never held a credential in California. That's how you apply for the prelim CTE. If you've had a credential before, you're going to use packet number 2. And then way down, packet number 5 is what you use for the clear credential. We also have credential resources. We have, and there's frequently asked questions in there. We have contacts. And then we also have our program instructors are listed. We also have other education resources at the bottom, which include the links to American Heart Association and the Red Cross. Okay, so now, just a quick review before we go to questions. Here's what I think we did today. I hope we met our outcomes. We examined the qualifications for the preliminary credential. We talked about how single subject credentialed teachers may obtain a preliminary credential for CTE. We reviewed the requirements to clear the CTE credential. We talked about the CTE professional preparation coursework that's needed, and we explored our website. Hopefully we hit our target questions. All right, what I'm going to show you on this last page is, this is Linda's email. This is Lucy Domingo's email. This is Christina Fuente's email. Here's the phone number. And then here's my email. Now, we've been working remotely, as I'm sure many of you have. Linda, Lucy, and Christina just starting this to 1 day a week. And I think next week they go to 2 days a week. And the week after that, they go to 3 days a week and so forth. We're still not doing appointments because LACOE has not said we can allow the public to come into the building. Don't know when that's going to happen. We haven't been doing appointments for 2 years now, but we're all available. You can call. You'll either get Lucy or Christina, depending. And you're welcome to email me. I don't get that many emails. I teach the courses and I help Linda process credentials, but Linda gets a slew of emails. So, if you have a lot of questions, want to go back and forth and explore things and send me things to look at, I'm the better person probably to do that with. I can answer 99% of the questions. So it might be faster if you just want to email me. Yeah, I'm going to go back to the start of the questions, and William said to me about music. Yeah, music is another similar thing. So we get a lot of CTE credentials in arts, media, and entertainment, and within that, music is one of the subjects. Yeah. Okay, to anybody, oh, hi, Karen. Karen's with LA Unified District. To anyone on this call that may be looking for a CTE teaching position, my name is Karen and I help recruit CTE teachers or email. Hey, Karen will hire you. Great. Thank you so much, Karen.
That is correct.
Yes, hi Nancy. Thank you so
Hi,
much
Carla.
for all the information.
Sure.
I currently hold a CTE credential, but while you were presenting the information, you talked about the English language authorization. Is that something I can get since my credential I got back in 2004 and it automatically renews?
Yeah, no.
Oh,
So what you'd have to do is apply for the new credential, and then the English learners will be part of that.
got it.
You've been filing waivers every year?
No, just the renewal. So I would have to reapply for the same credential that I have.
Yeah,
Okay, and
well,
that's
the newer one with the industry sectors, right? If you credential in 2004, it's probably an old voc ed. Or,
probably, it has the ICT authorization.
oh, it does.
Yeah.
In 2004?
That's when I first got it, and then it's been renewed every 5 years or so. Would it be
Yeah.
okay if I email you and send you like my
Absolutely.
information?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because the EL authorization didn't go into place until 2010.
Ah, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will
yeah.
definitely reach out to you via email. That way, if I have, maybe I'll need to reapply then.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so yeah, Rosalind, you can contact me about changing your voc ed to a CTE. Rosalind, there are quite a few teacher positions needed available due to many teachers retiring. That's what we've heard. A lot of teachers either retired in the last couple of years when others were remote teaching, or they went ahead and once it was time to go back, they said, no, I'm ready now. I need to go. So some subject areas in particular have been very hard to recruit for. One of the things we do is if a district is recruiting, you know to go on edjoin.org. That's where you're going to find all school districts post on edjoin.org. Community colleges post on cccregistry.org. But if you're in a district and you've got teacher openings, and if you want to send us the job flyer, what we can do is go into our database. Let's say you're looking for, I don't know, a health teacher. We can pull up the emails from everybody who got the health science and medical technology credential, and Lucy will shoot out an email with your flyer. And, you know, people, if they're not in the job market, they'll just ignore it. But that's how we help get the word out. But yeah, I mean, primarily posting on EdJoin is the thing. How does CLAD affect the CTE? If you have CLAD, you don't have to take our English learners course. So we'll waive it. And your district doesn't have to file those waivers every year. You have CLAD, you're qualified to have English learners from the very beginning. So that's how that goes. And yeah, LA Unified has openings exploding right now. Wow, many schools are looking to add new CTE pathways. Yeah, there happens to be some pretty good money out there right now for CTE incentive grants and another funding called K-12 workforce. And of course, you know, the Perkins funds continue on and on and on. So yeah, there's a lot of districts, as Karen said, adding new CTE career pathways, and they need teachers. So, you know, go into that EdJoin regularly, and you can set it up, you know, to get notifications from EdJoins. You can put in the particular type of position you're looking for, and it'll send you notifications when something's posted. So, well, that concludes my presentation. And again, you all have my email. You're welcome to email me anytime at all, and I'll answer your questions. And whatever we can do to help you at LACOE, we're glad to do so.